The Beast of the Field by KB HURST. Part 1. I will let loose among you the beasts of the field, which will reave you of your children and destroy your cattle, and reduce your number, so that your roads lie deserted. Leviticus 26:22. The air seemed too cold for the fog to rise from the marsh floor, yet it did, and it blocked out the crescent moon above the trees. Joshua walked around, trying to find his way back to the trail. It had begun to rain, and thunder was sounding from the distance. His phone had died a bit ago. Uncertain which way to go, he felt the best way would be by the water. He found a stream and began to follow it. There were sounds of animals scurrying in the brush beneath his feet. Joshua heard a sound in the distance, and he put down the shovel he had carried into the woods. It sounded like something between a scream and a howl. Now, his ears were playing tricks on him too. There was a pile of mud beneath his feet. Joshua added to the pile as he slipped, nearly falling over. He heard the sound again and rushed to complete his task, digging his heel in to prevent slipping once again. He turned on his flashlight and looked for someone, but no one was there. He felt eyes upon him too, but he knew he was only being paranoid. A light calling prevented him from moving further, and Joshua felt the hair on his neck rise. He grabbed his shovel, having buried his sultry treasure. He picked up a gold necklace and a small pink purse, put them in his backpack, and ran towards the nature reserve's parking lot. He was sure no one had seen him, and he needed to keep it that way. Joshua arrived home, putting his keys on the same hook he did every evening. Tonight, he had business to attend to. It was something that made him feel better every time he allowed it to possess him. Anthony would be so proud when he told his brother, his very twin at birth, that every freckle and every hair were exactly the same. Joshua arrived upstairs and then stopped before going into Anthony's room. He would be so proud of what he had accomplished. He knocked before he went in. He looked at the bed where Anthony sat undressing. He put on a t-shirt and sat across from Anthony's bed. He could see Anthony so clearly when he took off his black-rimmed glasses. "You are so quiet, brother. I think that you'll be very proud of what I have done. Very proud. This time, I think I figured out a solution. This cancer shit will not kill us. I brought the blood I took from Miss Boyer. She tried to put up a fight, but then I reasoned we needed more, my brother. And then she let me take her right there under the full moon." He looked at the bed and waited until he finally stood up, with his back on the bed. He looked up into the mirror and saw the bed's reflection. It was then and there Anthony spoke. "Did you clean up the mess or leave it like before? The cops were suspicious that it was someone that lived so close to the river." Joshua nervously put on his glasses, looking ashamed. He stared only at his feet. "I did good. I buried Miss Boyer, and there's no way she'll be found." He could hear his brother's voice and how clearly he sounded when angry. "Did you bury her deep? Or will an animal find this one? Don't be stupid, Joshua. You must always make sure there is no evidence." I did, Anthony, I did. I promise. Even I kept her purse so they wouldn't find it. And I stripped her naked. I cut off her hands, and I threw them in a fire. Her head? I couldn't leave that either. She was so pretty. It's too bad we couldn't have turned her too. She was so pretty. What do you mean you couldn't leave her head? It's in my backpack. Leave it here when you leave. Why should you have all the fun? But she's mine. Not anymore. Get out. Joshua dropped his bag on the floor and closed the door behind him. As he did, he felt anger and jealousy. If only he could kill Anthony once and for all. Yet, he lived on even after what had happened. Joshua didn't like to think about the accident he caused. The accident that made his brother a surly creature of the night. He had promised to do the same for Anthony when he got sick. So far, he had not collected enough blood. There had not been enough blood. He went downstairs and into the kitchen pantry. There on the shelves lying jars of blood, waiting to be used in a sacrifice. Chapter 2. Tracy stared at the computer at the library, nearly dozing off. "Hey, chica, what's up?" asked Miguel. Trigonometry, that's what's up. Why did I sign up for this? I'm in college now. Because you're trying to get a degree and not be a loser like half the idiots in this town? I'd rather work at a coffee house because my brain can't take it, and I haven't slept much. You still have those crazy dreams? He asked, his brown eyes showing many, many emotions. The one about the man that's chasing me? Miguel, it's so real. I can't explain it. Maybe it's a premonition. Where are you in the dreams? So, you know, like not to go there? I don't know. It's somewhere in the middle of the forest. Look, I think you need a break. Do you want to go for dinner and think about Trig tomorrow? Sounds nice. Okay. Tracy grabbed her things and walked with Miguel towards the local bar and grill, aptly named Bar and Grill. It was stupidly clever. When they got to the bar and grill, a detective talked to the manager. No, she never came in for a shift. I called everybody I could think of. Her family says they'll be in town tomorrow to help search. It just doesn't like Sandy. The detective looked around, then his eyes stopped on the two newcomers to the bar. Have you seen this young lady around campus? He showed them a photo of a young girl with a golden retriever. Sandy Boyer? Oh, not for like a week maybe? That was the last time we were in here, Tracy said, looking at Miguel. Is she in some sort of trouble? Miguel asked. We don't know. She's been missing for a week. Oh my God, that's terrifying to think about, Tracy said, looking up at the detective. Look, if you see her, give us a call, the detective said, handing her a card with his name and number. Suddenly, Tracy didn't have much of an appetite. She didn't know why, but there was something about the missing girl. Sure, she had known her as a bartender, and they only had exchanged small talk, but the realization that someone could be out there targeting girls Tracy's age, it scared her. Not to mention those dreams. Miguel took Tracy home after they had each one drink. They had been friends for a couple of years and had only been friends. They never dated, but were as close as two humans of the opposite sex could be without being siblings. Tracy finished doing some laundry and climbed into her bed for the night. She had taken precautions and a sleeping pill to keep her from waking up in the middle of the night. Wrapping up into her thick quilt, she dozed off quickly, listening to the night classical music. It was the same dream. The same one she always had. There was a man who chased her into a house, where inside she found no one to help her or keep her safe. The man was all black from head to toe, like a shadow. Yet, there he was. And just as she had found herself locking the house door to keep out the madman, he had found his way in through another unknown entrance. Running out the door into the winter's night, she could see so much fog, yet the only thing that she could see was amber eyes watching her. When she turned around, he was almost upon her. But what would those monsters do to her in the bushes if she kept going? Ugh. Damn alarm. Tracy hit the button, climbing out of bed sluggishly. Another nightmare, and a new day lacking the rest she would need to tackle her classes. The daily paper reported on the missing student. Tracy was sitting in her seat at a coffee shop when she leaned in to rewrite a paragraph for the paper she was working on. She dropped her pen on the floor and was just about to lean over to pick it up when she saw a tall, thin man with black hair and eyes walk over and quickly pick it up for her. "Thanks," she smiled. "No problem," he said, looking at her longer than was natural. Tracy looked away, and then the man spoke again. "Do you go to school here? I've never seen you around. Is your name Jennifer?" "No, sorry. My name isn't Jennifer. It's Tracy," she said. He could receive the wanted response that he had watched her for a long time. "I'm Joshua. It's nice to meet you, Tracy." At that moment, Miguel came into the shop and sat down. "Well, are you ready to go eat dinner?" "Oh, my gosh, I'm starving. Do you have notes from yesterday's class?" Miguel nodded. "I'll give them to you when we get back to the dorm." "It was nice meeting you, Joshua. Maybe I'll see you around," Tracy said to Joshua as she walked out with Miguel. Joshua nodded and said nothing. His eyes followed Tracy for a long while before he decided to get up and see where the two college students were headed. Chapter 4. A loud sound came from the old mansion's ballroom. The butler, Mason, went into the room with a food tray. "Victor, I have your lunch." The machine moved. It creaked and wrestled as it folded inward and then outward. It was a giant mouth that was mechanical, but also flesh. The head of a gazelle emerged and then rose from the 4 bars that held the device in place. It sat in the middle of the bars and hovered as it changed from a gazelle to a beefy man's head. It was magical in nature, but almost chemical, as it was easy for him to shapeshift. Victor slowly slithered from the middle of the 4 bars, holding it up like a baby's crib, and walked from the inside of it to the table. He placed a napkin on his lap and began cutting into his steak. "You received a letter from the university," said Mason. "What does it say?" "Only that your answer is to be expected by the end of the month on whether or not you'll be speaking at the graduation." "Oh. Well, you may let Dean Brown know I plan to speak, but only for 20 minutes. You know my legs don't last long anymore." Mason nodded and went to respond to the letter for Victor. Victor's hands were crumpled up from arthritis, and his legs were thin and deteriorating. The invention was far from complete, but what wonders it offered. Victor Tom Hurst was an inventor. He had previously worked in genetics, but hated that there was nothing left to do once he had learned everything. He had desires to help the criminal justice system. It had been part of his life's work to understand what makes killers do what they do. It all changed when his family died in a fire. He too had been injured, but did not die from his injuries. It had been declared arson. However, the person, or persons behind it, were never caught. Victor turned his full attention to finding the people who'd murdered his family. Victor sat thinking about his latest invention. He wasn't sure he liked it. Perhaps it was time to create something new. He'd been studying the work of Nazi scientists when he came across a brief study on werewolves. He knew there was no such thing as werewolves, but he knew they had been able to turn soldiers into addicts. Once prescribed certain medications, they could chemically create men with the strength of a supernatural creature that could withstand long fights and run fast as lightning. But when they came down from it, well, a different kind of nightmare. Victor thought about a serum, something to turn a man into the perfect hunter. A hunter that could sniff out the nose of a criminal nature.